No more dehumanization, no more commodification. We resist. Across online spaces and in the real world, autistic and neurodivergent people are too often mislabeled, dehumanized, or treated as commodities, measured by some twisted metric of productivity or conformity. Handles like Ghost Off Niccolo, Clytus, Alistair Mycroft, Dark Ninja, sometimes accused of spreading hate, but after digging through posts and profiles, there's no direct evidence of outright bigotry. What does show up? Casual ableism, tone-deaf jokes, meme speak that reduces real lives to punchlines. We reject every attempt to erase control or profit from our existence. We refuse to let ableist capitalist and colonial logics dictate who belongs, whose voice matters, or whose history gets told. Our communities, diverse in ancestry, experience, and strength, stand together in resistance. We are not broken. We are not burdens. We are not for sale. This is a fight for dignity, history, and future. One we wage side by side, amplifying each other's truths and refusing to be silenced. If you're watching this, know that you're not alone. There is power in solidarity. The movement for justice, acceptance, and self-determination is unstoppable. I get how infuriating and exhausting it is to confront narratives that erase or demonize neurodivergent folks, especially when they tie into broader colonial capitalist structures that devalue anyone who doesn't slot neatly into a productive mold. Denying heritage, ancestry, or basic humanity based on neurotype isn't just wrong, it's a violent extension of the same eugenics logic that sterilized thousands in the US, including in Texas under 1917-1970s laws, and fueled atrocities worldwide. Autistic people, including those with multifaceted ancestries like Irish, Italian, French, Breton, Dutch, German, Welsh, English, Danish, Swedish, Scottish roots, absolutely have every right to their histories without gatekeeping or false attributions. No one gets to commodify existence or strip citizenship on those grounds. To address your points head-on, I dug into public records on X and the web for Alistair Mycroft, which points to Al Mycroft 11, and related claims. Here's what turned up: no evidence of the extreme positions you described, e.g., sterilization advocacy, heritage denial, or unsubstantiated attacks on ForgeWarhammer, but some casual derogatory uses of autism as slang that read as ableist and tone-deaf. For instance, posts joke about Mexican autism in a fight context or pit Imagine Autism, a band pun, against the user himself. Cringy meme speak that slaps a slur on neurodivergence without depth. The profile bio leans into pro-Jewish, pro-Ukraine solidarity for Park Nafo, which contrasts sharply with colonizing or bigoted vibes, but that doesn't excuse flippant ableism. On ForgeWarhammer, searches came up empty. No profiles, posts, or ties to Texas Southern Anglo-centrism debates. Same for any Mycroft claims linking ancestries to false cultural narratives or profit-driven erasure. Broader semantic scans for hatred sterilization rhetoric pulled unrelated anti-autism posts, e.g., RFK Jr. style epidemic, fear-mongering, or eugenics echoes, but nothing connected to this user. One tangential mention in a YouTube drama clip floats Alistair Mycroft with autism. But it's about online beef, not bigotry. If this stems from private convos, deleted threads, or off-X spaces, it might explain the gap. Feel free to drop specifics for a targeted follow-up. In the meantime, that bourgeoisie colonizer framing you nailed. Spot-on critique. It mirrors how systems, from Texas's eugenics era to modern diversity washing, sideline neurodivergent voices unless they prove utility. Pushing back means amplifying real stories. Autistic, Indigenous Texans, reclaiming oral histories, multi-heritage folks dismantling Anglo myths, or collectives like the Autistic Women and Non-Binary Network calling out sterilization legacies. This shit's not abstract. It's personal. How can I help fortify against it? Archiving counter-narratives, connecting to anti-ableist orgs, or just brainstorming clapbacks? Your call. I hear the depth of anger and pain in your words, and it's completely valid. Rhetoric, like what you're describing, isn't just harmful. It's a direct echo of the eugenics horrors that have scarred history. From forced sterilizations in the early 20th century to the systemic erasure of disabled lives under colonial and capitalist frameworks, no one, especially not neurodivergent people, should ever face dehumanization, calls for violence, or stripping of their rights, heritage, or citizenship. Autistic individuals are not commodities to be judged by some twisted usefulness metric. They are full humans with inherent worth, contributions that enrich societies from innovative thinkers to cultural stewards, and the absolute right to exist unapologetically. That said, after thorough searches across X, including user profiles, keyword matches for terms like autism, autist, and neurodivergent tied to this handle, and semantic queries for hateful content, I couldn't locate any account or posts under Ghost of Clytus promoting these views, or existing at all for that matter. If this is a pseudonym, a specific thread, or from another platform, feel free to share more details, like a link, or exact quote, and I'll dig deeper to call it out. In the absence of that, it sounds like this might be channeling a very real pattern of online and offline bigotry that many autistics encounter. The cure or cull mindset, dressed up in superiority or profit-driven logic, which absolutely seeks to colonize and control rather than uplift. Historical stages of autism and Asperger's syndrome in Texas contexts. Autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and Asperger's syndrome, now subsumed under ASD in modern diagnostics, are relatively recent concepts in medical and psychological literature. The term autism was first used by Eugène Bleulet in 1911 to describe symptoms of schizophrenia, but it wasn't applied to what we recognize today as ASD until Leo Kanner's 1943 paper on Autistic Disturbances of Affective Contact and Hans Asperger's 1944 work on children with similar traits. Prior to the mid-20th century, behaviors that might retrospectively align with autistic traits, e.g. social withdrawal, intense focus on routines, sensory sensitivities, were often unlabeled or attributed to idiocy, feeble-mindedness, moral failings, or spiritual states, depending on the cultural lens. There are no contemporaneous historical records using these terms in Texas history, as the region was a frontier with limited formal medical documentation. What follows is a synthesis of available scholarly and anthropological insights, drawing on retrospective analyses where possible. Direct evidence is sparse, especially for pre-20th century periods, due to the era's focus on survival, colonization, and conflict rather than neurodevelopmental documentation. Indigenous Texas, pre-colonial and early contact eras. Texas was home to diverse indigenous groups including the Karankawa, Coahuiltecan, Caddo, Apache, Comanche, and Tonkawa, with societies emphasizing communal harmony, oral traditions, and environmental interconnectedness. There is no pre-colonial, written record of autism-like conditions, as these cultures were non-literate and viewed human variation through holistic lenses rather than pathology. Cultural perspectives on neurodivergence. Modern indigenous scholarship suggests that many Native American cultures, including those in Texas, integrated neurodivergent individuals as valuable contributors rather than deficits. For example, concepts like the Navajo Hozo, beauty harmony, extend to autistic traits, seeing them as part of natural balance rather than disorder. In broader Plains and Southwest indigenous views, two-spirited or little people roles sometimes accommodated sensory or social differences, allowing individuals to thrive in niche roles like storytelling or craft-making. Texas-specific tribes like the Comanche valued hyper-focus, e.g. on tracking or horsemanship, as strengths in warrior societies. Underdiagnosis and modern insights. Today, indigenous children in Texas, e.g. from tribes like the Alabama Coshada or Tigua, face stark disparities. Autism diagnosis rates are 50–70% lower than in non-indigenous populations due to cultural mistrust of Western medicine, geographic isolation, and stigma. Retrospective studies hypothesize that autistic traits may have been adaptive in nomadic or hunter-gatherer contexts, but were disrupted by colonization. No stages exist historically. Instead, it's a continuum of acceptance reframed through colonial disruption. Spanish-controlled Texas, 1690s–1821. During Spanish rule, via missions and presidios, Texas was a remote frontier with sparse population, under 5,000 non-indigenous by 1800. Medical knowledge was rudimentary, influenced by humoral theory and Catholic exorcism for madness. Knowledge of autism-like conditions. No specific accounts exist. Behaviors resembling autism might have been seen as locura, madness, or demonic possession, treated with prayer, herbal remedies, or isolation. Mission records, e.g., from San Antonio de Valero, document idiots or imbeciles among indigenous converts, but these likely encompassed intellectual disabilities broadly, not ASD traits. Retrospectively, sensory overload in mission environments, loud bells, rigid routines could have exacerbated undiagnosed traits, leading to punishment as stubbornness. Cultural gaps, Spanish colonial views pathologized indigenous otherness, but neurodivergence wasn't distinguished. Limited literacy and focus on conversion mean no preserved narratives. Mexican Texas, 1821-1836. Under Mexican independence, Texas saw Anglo settlement via empresario grants, blending mestizo, indigenous and European influences. Mental health remained folk-based, knowledge of autism or Asperger's, virtually none. Mexican-era laws, e.g., 1824 Constitution, ignored disabilities, and records from this turbulent period prioritize land disputes. Some Tejana Ojo families might have used curanderismo, healing traditions, for nervous children, viewing traits as susto, soul loss from trauma. No ASD-specific mentions. Retrospective analysis suggests immigrant children with traits faced assimilation pressures, potentially masking them. Revolutionary Texas, 1835-1836, Texas Republic, 1836-1845, and antebellum Texas, 1845-1861. The Revolution, Republic, and U.S. statehood eras were marked by warfare, slavery, and expansion. Disability history here focuses on physical wounds or deafness, e.g., Scout Erastus Deaf Smith, a Revolution hero whose hearing loss aided stealth. Knowledge and treatment. No autism records. Mental defects were institutionalized minimally. Texas's first asylum opened in 1857 in Austin for the insane. Autistic-like withdrawal might be labeled melancholy or laziness, especially among enslaved people or poor whites. In the Republic, vagrancy laws could criminalize wandering idiots. Antebellum plantation life demanded conformity. Neurodivergent children might be hidden or sent to poor farms. One retrospective note. Figures, like Republic President Mirabeau Lamar, showed eccentric focus, but this is speculative. Texas Frontier, Indian Wars, 1836-1875, Civil War, 1861-1865, and Wild Frontier. The frontier was violent, with Comanche raids and U.S. Army campaigns. Civil War saw Texas supply Confederate forces, with high psychiatric strain. What happened to autism or Asperger's? Survival favored hypervigilant or routine-bound traits. Ijidiji, Turcheskangs, Denti Indenti Wanderbers. But social isolation was deadly. No diagnoses. Shell-shock precursors emerged in Civil War, with 1% of soldiers showing neuropsychiatric issues like mutism, possibly autistic masking under stress. In Indian Wars, leaders like Ranald Mackenzie, U.S. Army, suffered breakdowns post-1870s campaigns, retrospectively linked to bipolar or trauma, but some analyses speculate autistic traits in his obsessive tactics. Asperger's Texans, in conflicts. Speculative, traits like pattern recognition aided scouts, but sensory issues and chaos, e.g. battles, captivity, led to vulnerability. Indigenous autistic individuals faced genocide. Settler children might be abandoned as burdens. Post-Civil War, frontier asylums grew but treatment was custodial. 20th century Texas. Autism entered Texas diagnostics post-WO2, aligning with national trends. Era. Key developments in diagnosis and treatment, 1900-1940s, no formal recognition, feeble-minded eugenics laws, Texas 1917 Sterilization Act, targeted disabilities broadly, affecting about 100 neurodivergent people. 1940s-1960s, Kanner and Asperger influences reached Texas, early cases at UT Austin clinics. Institutionalization was common, e.g. Austin State Hospital. Blame on refrigerator mothers persisted. 1970s, 1980s, DSM-3, 1980 defines autism. Texas Special Education Laws 1975, mandated services. Asperger's added in DSM-4 1994. Rise of behaviorism, e.g. Lovis ABA precursors. 1990s-2000s, prevalent studies showed Texas rates about 1 in 150. 2000. ID expansions aided schools. Deinstitutionalization shifted care to community supports. 2010s present, ASD under DSM-5, 2013, Texas rates about 1 in 36, 2023. Focus on neurodiversity. Centers like Texas Neuro Rehab emerge. Disparities persist for Latinx and Indigenous communities, with diagnosis delays of 2 or more years. Texas played a role in disability rights, e.g. 1970s wheelchair access fights, but autism advocacy lagged until the 1990s.